just fly it over to that island there, and I'm going to trim for it. Now again, what happens is, because this is a PlayStation, it's really sensitive, where you'll see that sometimes the jolts, particularly on my streams, you'll see me jolting, and all that is that's me trying to set my trim up so that I can take my hand off my left analog stick. So I don't want to fly over 120 knots. We spoke about that a minute ago. You have a look at my vertical speed. It's just fluctuating between around 1,300 feet. It'll go up and it'll go down. It's down to us now to manage it. And you always see these little movements in the aircraft, and you'll see that these little tiny control movements here keep me straight, level, forward and back. That's all it takes to fly a helicopter. It takes no more than that at all. So what we can do now is we can talk about getting into the hover as we're coming over here, and we can take a little a moment to take a hover at sea. We'll do that a little bit closer to St. Bart's, because the difficulty that you've got when you're hovering in the middle of the sea here, you've not got really any references but the horizon. And because you've only got the horizon and you're moving around the horizon, you've got no fixed point in land. So it can actually be quite difficult to hover. So what we'll do is I'm going to smash up the speed and fly quite recklessly and fast over to St. Bart's. So again, you'll see now that I'll start climbing. At the moment I'm descending as I'm trying to get that speed, and the sim is now giving me that little bit of air effect and chucking me all around the place, okay? And that's what you can see here, that jolting, and that's me just trying to counter it because it's quite an unstable aircraft. And all we're going to do is we're going to fly over here. If we're in the cruise, if anyone does have any questions they want to ask whilst, because that's going to take us a good 5 minutes to get over there, please fire them away and we can talk through them. So at the moment, revisiting, actually that's Princess Juliana over there, revisiting what we've looked at so far. We've looked at the controls, we've looked at trim, we've looked at how to hover, we've looked at how the controls can actually help each other, but also how they can not help each other. For example, we've spoken about that collective lever and cyclic stick. And there's just basically the basic controls of a helicopter. And again, it's understanding what those control movements are going to do. Yeah, it's one good thing I like about the sim. The sim is quite well built in that respect. You can see here at the moment we're doing 120 knots and we've climbed to 3,000 feet. That's fine, because I'm going to try and do an auto rotation in a minute. How are we doing for time? We're at 1 hour 2 minutes. Cool, so got about another 20 minutes left, I'd say. And again, all this time when I'm flying, small corrections, because if I let go now, look at what the aircraft wants to do. It's you're constantly fighting with it. So I've just trimmed down and right. Now it wants to go down and right, so I'm going to trim up and left, and it wants to throw me now up and left. So when you trim it, whilst it's an effective means of flying the aircraft, you have to always be trimming it. You have to be trimming on and off and on and off. So flying the helicopters here, honestly, once you can just get past that urge to smash in loads of controls, it's actually quite easy. They're not that hard to do. The hardest part by far is managing your descent and speed when, for example, you're trying to I don't know, go and rescue a swimmer or a sailor in one of the rescue missions, okay? Because you can often end up going past it. So as we approach St. Bart's, I'm going to hammer the speed in again. I'm going to start descending. I've just clicked 2 clicks on that collective lever, and look at my rate of climb and descent down the bottom. I'm at minus 1,000 feet. Again, that could put you into a vortex ring. However, it's now settling down a little bit, so we'll let that continue. But we're going to keep a downward trajectory all the way down to St. Bart's, and I'm monitoring my airspeed here as well. So you can see here my airspeed is almost at max. Okay, we don't want to go over 150 knots really. At least that gives us 10 knots to play with. The other thing to be mindful of is your string here. Okay, so this will tell you if you're actually flying well. If I was to yaw and go this way, watch what happens with that string. Again, that's another lesson to talk about that. But that string doesn't really move. There you go. See how it's moving? That's me putting yaw in is playing around on the other surfaces. Look how that string moves. Okay, so you want that string flying straight and level in the middle of the aircraft. Okay, if you are flying and that string is pointing the other direction, it's not letting me do it. But yeah, it's not very effective flying. Okay, so Princess Juliana is that airport there. That's the one where you see the videos on TikTok and all that lot of the pilots, the aircraft flying over the beach and pushing people over. Right, whilst we're at an effective height here, I'm going to talk about very quickly trim release. Now, it's quite important that in some aspects you release the trim. So if I just let go of my stick now, like I did a minute ago, the aircraft is quite well trimmed. It's okay. However, if I release my trim, so if I release the hold that I have put on the aircraft, look what happens. I'm going to press R1 and circle. Look at that. It's put me into a spin. I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover that now. Don't know if I'm going to be able to recover that. Yeah, I can. But it's completely wiped me out, okay? And it's put me back into the configuration that we were in when we were first at the airport, okay? So you've got to be really, really careful. God, we lost 1,000 feet then. You've got to be really careful if you are going to trim release whilst you're in the air, okay? Now what would happen in the real world is you would have, wherever your stick was, you'd press your trim release button, you'd keep your hand on the stick and you would put it into that direction. Unfortunately on the game we don't have that ability to do it, so the stick will go back to its neutral position, okay? Now what I'm going to do here, because I'm struggling with that a little bit, is I'm going to trim that back, and again you can see it jolting. That's just me letting go of the stick so I can see if I'm trimmed, okay? You can see that the aircraft still wants to move to the left, so trim to the right, and it wants to go nose up. Okay, so now if you look there, I'm almost quite nicely trimmed. So we don't trim release in the air, okay, on these things, because you've just seen that it took me, God, I'm descending now, it took me over 1,000 feet below where I was, okay? Right, now we've got safe and effective flying. We're going to put a bit more collective in because we are dropping to 600 feet, and it's because we've slowed down. And we're going to fly effectively. Now, do I show you now about auto rotations and the drop in RPM? It'll probably crash me because I don't think the sims, I've tried it before and the sim won't set up for it. But we can have a look at what happens when we pull the collective lever up too fast. So if you have a look here, this is the collective lever, and again this is controlling the pitch of all of your blades. Look what happens when we pull it all the way up. What's the RPM? So the aircraft wants to roll and move. Look at the RPM, 96, 97. The RPM, oh, it's not doing it very well. Okay, but it's going up to 101, 102. Okay, in the real world, if I pulled up that collective that quickly, that RPM would drop. So, whilst I want to try and give you that example, then that probably wasn't the best one to do it. I should have probably looked at that before coming online because it didn't want to do it. But yeah, so you're increasing the power, but if I'm pulling the collective up that quickly, that far, I'm going to over torque the engine, and I'm going to slow those rotors completely down. I'm probably going to fall out of the sky, okay? So, yeah, we don't really want to do that. Now, I think I've messed up a little bit because my power's dropped off. It didn't like that at all. Here we go, power's come back on. If you have a look at my gauges there, I think that was going to put me into the sea then. So it was half realistic. Right, almost at St. Bart's. Let's get trimmed again for forward flight and speed. And again, this is the good thing about this this sim. Get in and have a go. You know, get into it and have a go at what does happen when I pull the collective up. What does happen when I push the nose fully forward? Notice how it wants to go to the right. You know, and have a go and see how the sim reacts. Obviously, you would never do that in real world, but see what happens when you pull back. So when it pull back, I know that I'm going to slow down, but also I know that the relationship between my cyclic and my height, we discussed that a minute ago, is as I slow down, it's going to want to climb. Let's try it. Slow down. It's going to want to climb. There it is. And exactly the same as if I want to speed up. As I want to speed up, there we go. I'm going to speed up now. It wants to descend. So it's having that relationship between the two and understanding that you've always got to be, whenever you're playing with the pitch of your blades, you've also got to be playing with the collective as well. Or when I say that, I mean when you're playing with the cyclic, you've got to be playing with the collective as well. Right, we are almost at St. Bart's. Once we get there, we'll talk about the approach. And we'll talk about slowing down to the hover. Now, with coming into a hover, okay, you're going to have to slow it down quite quickly because when you're on an approach, what you don't want to do is descend as you're descending, you don't want to be speeding up, but also as you're descending and you try to slow down by pulling back, you don't want to actually climb. So this has all got to be managed quite in quite a not ordered fashion, but you've got to manage it well. So as we get a little bit closer, we're only a couple of minutes away. The airport I'm landing at is in between this gap here. Again, this is one of those famous ones, St Bartholomew. This is on here. There's a roundabout. So basically, pilots in the real world, you've got to have a special category on your license or permission to fly in. They'll use these rock formations here, and they'll use some of the buildings here, and they'll fly in. And basically, what happens is they'll go over the top of a roundabout to the point where people can actually reach up and touch them, and then they throw their nose down towards the floor. It's a fantastic approach. And if anyone's watching this, likes their little island hops, get yourself in a little Cessna 172 or 152 or a Baron or a Piper or whatever you want to fly, and get yourself from Juancho, Saba, or Princess Juliana, and get yourself over to St Bart's. It's really well depicted on here. It's really good. So as we're looking here, we're about 5 miles away, 4 or 5 miles away. You can see our markers there, so 4 miles away. Usually around the 2 mile mark, that's when I'm going to start slowing the aircraft down and bring the descent in. You can see where the approach markers start around here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start coming in, and I'm going to lose my height first. Okay, so I'm going to put my collective down a couple of clicks. You can see I'm losing height. And as I lose height, what I need to do now is I need to start pulling back on my stick, because I'm going to reduce speed. Watch my speed come down as I do it. It will come down. There's 102, 101, 100. Okay, but now look what's happened. Because I haven't brought the collective down enough, my vertical speed's going up. So this is the relationship now on the approach, is you have to, as you're pulling up, you put the collective down further. Okay, so as we bring that speed down, I'm going to bring that collective down. You can see the vertical speed. I'm still climbing. So again, it's finding that relationship between airspeed and vertical speed. There we go. So now we're slowing down and descending. Okay, now we are quite high here. And if I carry on at this rate, I'm probably going to be hovering around that mark there. Okay, so I'm going to put my nose down slightly. I'm going to get that little bit of airspeed. And around these points here, I will start to slow the speed down. However, I am going to try and descend a little bit more. So again, down on the collective lever. And you can see that vertical speed there. It's quite high. Okay, and again, I'm now controlling this by pitch. And this is the point I want to enter here. That's St Bart's Airport, just in there. Okay, my airspeed now, I'm going to start. I've just said that we're going to drop it. Start dropping the airspeed around here. I'm going to start pulling that nose back. Look what happens to my vertical speed. Vertical speed comes back up. Okay, so as we slow down and bring that nose up, it gets a little bit fidgety, and this is where we can now start trimming it to try and make it a little bit less fidgety. And we bring our airspeed back, and my approach speed in this aircraft is always going to be 50 knots. 50 knots, you'll see what happens now. It's almost like I'm going to be stopping here. Okay, so I'm going to trim for that, and I'm just going to keep that altitude. I don't want to be much higher than 500 feet, so bearing in mind that here that we've got the roundabout and that here, we're still descending, so I'm just going to bring it up a little bit, and I've slowed down a little bit too much. Again, a little bit of pitch in and a little bit of climb. You'll see we're drifting off because I slowed down too quickly. Okay, so that's why we nearly started getting into a hover. On that occasion, I'd slowed down too quickly. So again, let's put that pitch in, a little bit of climb, and now we take it really slowly and manage it. Okay, you see beautiful scenery here, and I'm just going to check my trim, so I'm trimmed okay. And then what we're going to do now, I don't want to climb much higher than that, so again I'm going to bring my speed back. Whilst I bring my collective down, you can see the runway's just come in here, and again, as I'm bringing that speed back, I need to bring down that collective. You see it's got a tendency to drop, and all that time I'm trying to line myself up with that runway. And now I'm flying the plane quite like an approach, the helicopter like a plane, as I'm using this dashboard now to line up with where I want to go. So I'm aiming for those piano keys. Bearing in mind that you're never really going to land on them if this is the technique you're using in a helicopter. And I'm just coming in really slowly, 20 knots, 30 knots, and then I'm going to manage that speed and that descent with pitch. And then you'll see that drop here in just a second.